Women, Tools, Technology, Building Opportunities and Economic Power is an innovative online challenge that identified transformative solutions for promoting women's economic advancement through technology with a focus on women from developing countries. Sponsored by Ashoka's Changemakers and ExxonMobil, in partnership with the International Center for Research on Women, the challenge sourced 268 entries from 67 countries. Efforts are part of ExxonMobil's Women Economic Opportunity Initiative, which has invested more than $32 million since its launch in 2005. On June 2nd, 10 finalists were chosen by an expert panel of judges. From now until June 22nd, anyone can vote on their 3 favorite finalists at changemakers.com/technologywomen. The winners will be announced June 29th and will be invited to participate in collaboration workshops, which will connect innovators with potential partners and include visits to promising projects. Today we are joined by Leslie Harris, the President and CEO of the Center for Democracy and Technology. Thank you for talking with us today, Leslie.
Glad to be here.
We are speaking with you because you embody the themes represented in the Women, Tools, Technology Challenge. So, without further ado, I'd like to start with our first question, which comes from Mwalimu Musheshe of the Uganda Rural Training and Development Program, who is an Ashoka Fellow. And she says, mobile communication has made our world much smaller. People can communicate across oceans in a matter of microseconds. It is interactive but impersonal. Is there a cheaper technology for women in rural and remote areas that they can use to see and hear each other and interact more capably? Communication is complete when one hears, sees, and, where possible, can truly touch. The impact is greater. So is there a cheaper technology for women in rural countries?
Well, I think that mobile technology is probably the cheapest and most easiest to deploy technology. I think the question is whether or not in rural areas we're going to be solely relying on mobile phones without data capacity and without the ability to do more advanced applications. What I'd like to see over time is that women in rural areas may be using mobile devices, but they're internet enabled, they are video conference enabled, and that we're able to use all those technologies to bring women together. There's no doubt that mobile has been an enormous economic driver in many developing countries and certainly in rural areas, but think where we were 10 years ago and then where we might be in 10 years, and I think we'll have this problem solved.
That's interesting, because another question from Mwalimu is that the majority of the women in developing countries are engaged in farming, crop and animal husbandry, and that sort of thing. But unfortunately, they were left out in the field when it comes to education. So what's your opinion, I guess, on how a rural woman can improve her productivity and that of her land, say, through information and communication technology?
Well, I certainly think that education courses, being able to participate in markets, understanding the values of their goods, where to sell, how to participate in a more sophisticated way than, necessarily through the 1 or 2 middlemen that they, now have available. But, I'm not a technology supremacist, and it's clear to me that some of the most exciting work going on for women in rural areas around the world has to do with communities of women who are joining together to build their economic power and that are, often supported by microfinance. So, I'm a giver of in microfinance. The internet has certainly supported getting more money out to women in these areas to be able to build their businesses. So I think there's a direct empowerment about what the women in these areas may have access to in terms of resources and education, but I think it's also women in the rest of the world being able to support their efforts for economic betterment.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of really intriguing and I think necessary essences here, and it dovetails nicely with a question that comes from Albert Nashin from Slum Media in Kenya, who poses his business would involve engaging women in the use of video recording, reporting, viewing, mentorship, and financing of ventures. And his question for you is, do you recommend entering into partnership with other innovations within organizations, or the use of solar systems, mobile technology, microfinance, or would you simply suggest fundraising and building upon his or anyone's original idea with other private businesses?
Well, it's hard to know because it's hard to know the specific economics in any particular area, but I do think that that collaborating with others is very powerful in terms of building businesses, and being able to receive capital from people around the world. Should you partner with a private business? Well, if there's a private business willing to invest in you, and that private business is one that you feel like you're getting fair terms, you have to make a decision about that. But I think there's a world has opened through solar, through traditional wireless, to reach and with the intermediaries of a lot of organizations. Kiva is the one that I work with, but they're not on the ground. There are a lot of on the ground groups. I think there's enormous opportunity, but I would never advise one over the other because it really depends on the environment that you're in.
Okay, and taking it back to the information and communication technology for a second. Peggy Fox Decay from Women Who Write Inc. Asks, first of all, she says her project teaches women poets and writers how to self-publish their work using cutting-edge, readily available technologies such as print-on-demand, and they can provide a means where there was no way previously for women in the writing field to get their work published and onto the field of global discourse. How do you envision the impact of this kind of technology on women, on writing, on the arts, and really on the communications on the whole, going into the future?
Well, I think it's one of the reasons I do the work I do, which is more on making sure that policies are in place to deploy this in a manner that's free and open. It's because I believe that it will empower women. And, I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world, but everybody might be surprised that it's hard, that, in the United States, women's voices are not the dominant voice either. I think that, women add a perspective to public debates, whether they're writing poetry or they're writing opinion pieces about the government in their countries. And that building women's voices is part of political stability, and that the more we are able to use these technologies for women to not just to publish and speak, but to use platforms to become involved in their countries and their politics, in the building of their communities, the better. And certainly. It is correct that that the publishing that a person anywhere can build an audience anywhere, and this would have been unthinkable 20 years ago in the United States, let alone in parts of the world that are less far along in the development of their infrastructures.
Now you mentioned